I received a report of suspicious activity. Open the door and show me your ID.
There's no suspicious activity.
I need to verify that. Show me your house.
The doorbell camera activates at 11:47 p.m. on March 15th, 2023. The motion sensor captures a figure approaching the front door of 2847 Maple Ridge Drive in Oakmont, a quiet suburb 40 minutes north of the state capitol. The porch light illuminates a man in uniform. He rings the doorbell 3 times in rapid succession, then begins knocking with increasing force. Inside, Iris Valdez, a 32-year-old emergency room nurse who finished her shift at Oakmont General Hospital 4 hours earlier, is asleep. She lives alone in this modest 2-bedroom rental house on a tree-lined street where neighbors know each other's names and children ride bicycles until dusk. The knocking grows louder. Iris wakes, confused and frightened. She checks her phone. No missed calls. No messages. No explanation for why someone would be at her door before midnight. She approaches cautiously, looks through the peephole, and sees Officer Garrett Hutchins of the Oakmont Police Department standing on her porch. She does not know him. She has never met him. She has no outstanding warrants, no unpaid tickets, no reason to expect police contact. The doorbell camera records everything that happens next. What begins as a confusing late-night encounter escalates within 11 minutes into an incident that will force a small suburban community to confront uncomfortable truths about the officers sworn to protect them. The video footage will be watched millions of times. Legal experts will debate its implications. A federal investigation will uncover patterns that local officials claim did not exist. This is not a story about one bad decision on one unusual night. The evidence will show something far more disturbing, a pattern of behavior enabled by institutional indifference, protected by systemic failures, and repeated until it finally became impossible to ignore. What the doorbell camera captured was not an anomaly. It was simply the first time anyone was watching. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. I was told this channel wouldn't reach 1,000 subscribers, but stories like this deserve to be heard. Your support helps bring these cases to light and proves that these stories matter. On the night of March 15th, 2023, Officer Garrett Hutchins approached the home of Iris Valdez without a warrant, without probable cause, and without any legitimate law enforcement purpose. The confrontation that followed resulted in Iris's unlawful detention, physical injury, and a sequence of events that exposed systemic failures within the Oakmont Police Department. Hutchins was ultimately convicted on 7 federal charges and sentenced to 76 years in prison, one of the longest sentences ever imposed on a law enforcement officer for civil rights violations. The case represents a collision between institutional power and individual rights. At its center is a fundamental question. What happens when those entrusted with enforcing the law believe they exist above it? The conflict extends beyond Hutchins as an individual to encompass the supervisors who ignored warning signs, the internal review system that repeatedly cleared him despite complaints, and the institutional culture that valued officer protection over public accountability. The Iris Valdez case became a focal point in national conversations about racial profiling, qualified immunity, police accountability, and the power of citizen documentation. Iris, a Mexican-American woman, represented a demographic often targeted by aggressive policing. The case revealed how assumptions about race, immigration status, and compliance intersect with officer authority. It demonstrated how departments can systematically fail to address problematic behavior until tragedy becomes unavoidable. Iris Valdez worked as a registered nurse in the emergency department at Oakmont General Hospital for 7 years. She graduated from State University with a Bachelor of Science in Nursing and maintained an exemplary employment record. She had no criminal record and no previous interactions with law enforcement beyond a speeding ticket 4 years prior. Iris grew up in Oakmont, the daughter of immigrants who came to the United States from Mexico in the 1980s. Colleagues describe her as calm under pressure, compassionate with difficult patients, and conflict avoidant by nature. Officer Garrett Hutchins, 41 years old at the time of the incident, joined the Oakmont Police Department 11 years earlier after working 3 years as a patrol officer in a smaller rural department. He left his previous position during an internal investigation into use of force complaints, though he was never formally disciplined. Between 2020 and the March 2023 incident, Hutchins was the subject of 6 civilian complaints filed with the Oakmont Police Department. These complaints shared common themes: targeting people of color, escalating low-stakes encounters unnecessarily, and characterizing cooperative citizens as aggressive in his reports. Every complaint was reviewed and cleared by supervisors. Every internal review found no policy violation. Sergeant Yvonne Castellano supervised Hutchins' squad for 3 years leading up to the incident. She served with the Oakmont Police Department for 22 years and had a reputation as a by-the-book supervisor. Her approach to supervision emphasized loyalty to officers under her command. When reviewing Hutchins' complaint history, she consistently interpreted ambiguous situations in his favor, accepting his explanations without independent investigation. She viewed her role as protecting her team from what she characterized as frivolous complaints. Chief Marcus Reeves led the Oakmont Police Department for 8 years at the time of the incident. He came to Oakmont from a larger urban apartment and promised community engagement, transparent accountability, and professional development. Despite his progressive rhetoric, internal emails later obtained through discovery showed Reeves was aware of Hutchins' complaint history, but chose not to intervene. In one message to Castellano, he wrote that Hutchins generated complaints but also made arrests, and unless something clearly crossed a line, issues should be managed at the supervisory level. Sienna Park, Iris's friend since college, worked as a civil rights attorney for a nonprofit legal organization. She was the person Iris called immediately after the incident. Sienna advised her preserve all evidence, seek medical attention, and document her injuries. Sienna encouraged Iris to make the doorbell footage public after the police department's initial response suggested they intended to charge Iris with resisting arrest and assault on an officer. The 6 complaints filed against Officer Hutchins between October 2020 and September 2022 reveal a consistent pattern when analyzed collectively. Every single complaint involved a person of color despite Oakmont's population being 68% white. Each complaint described Hutchins transforming low-stakes encounters into confrontational incidents. A traffic stop became a 30-minute interrogation. A person sitting in a parked car became a suspicious person investigation. A welfare check became a hostile confrontation. These escalations shared common features. Hutchins interpreted neutral or cooperative behavior as suspicious or disrespectful, demanded compliance beyond what the situation required, and responded to questions about his authority as challenges requiring more aggressive assertions of control. In each case, a reasonable officer could have concluded the encounter quickly and without conflict. Hutchins's written reports consistently describe complainants as hostile, uncooperative, aggressive, or confrontational. This characterization served 2 functions. It justified his own escalation as a response to their behavior, and it undermined their credibility when they filed complaints. This pattern of victim-blaming language appeared in every incident report he filed that later generated a complaint. The handling of these complaints revealed systematic failures at every review level. Sergeant Castellano conducted preliminary investigations but never interviewed complainants directly, never reviewed available video footage, and never examined Hutchins' complaint history to identify patterns. Her recommendation in all 6 cases was identical: no policy violation, no disciplinary action required. Captain Raymond Moss reviewed Castellano's findings and accepted her recommendations without independent investigation. Chief Reeves approved closure of all 6 complaints without additional investigation, despite attending monthly meetings where complaint summaries were discussed and patterns were raised by other command staff. Multiple opportunities existed to intervene before the Iris Valdez incident. Department policy stated that any officer receiving 3 or more complaints within a 12-month period should receive mandatory review for pattern assessment. Hutchins met this threshold in July 2021, but the review never occurred because no automated system existed to flag officers meeting intervention thresholds. Annual performance reviews should have addressed complaint history, but made no mention of it. Command staff meetings discussed high complaint officers, but mandated no specific interventions. At 11:47 p.m. on March 15, 2023, Iris's doorbell camera activated when Officer Hutchins approached her front door. He knocked forcefully 3 times. Inside, Iris woke confused and frightened. Through the door, she asked who was there. Hutchins responded that he was police and demanded she open the door. Iris asked what the situation was about and whether her family was safe. Hutchins provided no information and simply repeated his demand that she open the door immediately. Iris hesitated, asking again for an explanation. Hutchins began knocking harder and told her he would not ask again. When Iris continued asking why he was at her door, Hutchins framed her reasonable questions as refusing to cooperate with police. Iris decided to open the door, but kept the security chain engaged, creating a 4-inch opening. She asked again what the situation concerned. Hutchins claimed he received a report about suspicious activity at her address. This was a fabrication. No such report exists in dispatch records. No call for service was assigned to this address. When Iris explained she lived there and had just come home from work hours earlier, Hutchins demanded she remove the chain and show identification. Iris responded uncertainly that she did not think she had to show identification in her own home when she had done nothing wrong. Hutchins asked if she was refusing a lawful order, creating the false impression that Iris was committing a crime by not complying. When Iris tried to close the door out of fear, Hutchins prevented it from closing and pulled his baton. He struck the door chain twice, breaking the mounting screws and forcing the door open. Iris backed away with her hands raised, pleading for him not to hurt her. Hutchins entered her home without permission, without a warrant, and without legal justification. He ordered Iris to turn around, then grab her arms and force them behind her back, applying handcuffs tightly enough to cause bruising and abrasions. Despite Iris crying and saying the handcuffs hurt, Hutchins told her to stop resisting, though audio captures no sounds of physical resistance. Hutchins then searched Iris's home for approximately 7 minutes, opening closets and drawers, looking under furniture, searching her bedroom. He found nothing because there was nothing to find. Having found nothing to justify his entry or search, Hutchins arrested Iris for resisting an officer and obstructing a police investigation. He called for backup and requested transport. Officer Jennifer Walsh arrived and transported Iris to county jail while Hutchins remained at the scene, writing his incident report. Hutchins's written report described responding to a suspicious activity report, claimed Iris refused identification and became verbally aggressive, stated that Iris damaged the door chain by attempting to close the door on him, and characterized the behavior as requiring arrest. Nearly every factual assertion in this report was false, as proven by the doorbell camera footage. The doorbell camera footage captured 11 minutes and 37 seconds of high-definition video and audio. The footage showed Hutchins approaching alone without radioing dispatch, his forceful knocking, Iris's calm and reasonable questions, Hutchins's refusal to provide legitimate explanation, his escalating threats, Iris's attempt to close the door when feeling unsafe, Hutchins using his baton to break the chain, and his entry without legal authority. Audio captured Iris pleading and crying inside the home. This footage directly contradicted virtually every assertion in Hutchins's written report. County dispatch records proved no call for service was assigned to Iris's address on March 15th to 16th. No neighbor called about suspicious activity. The log showed Hutchins did not radio dispatch to notify them of his location when he arrived, violating department protocol. His first communication occurred where he requested backup, transport 12 minutes after arriving. Forensic examination of the door damage showed the chain mounting screws were pulled outward from inside the house, consistent with force applied from the exterior. The door frame showed impact marks consistent with a baton striking the chain. The damage pattern was entirely inconsistent with someone inside closing the door and directly contradicted Hutchins's narrative. Medical documentation from jail booking and hospital examination showed bruising and abrasions on both of Iris's wrists, consistent with handcuffs applied with unnecessary tightness and arms pulled with force beyond what was required for restraint. Text messages from Hutchins's phone 3 days after the arrest included a message to a fellow officer stating, "That Mexican nurse is claiming I violated her rights. Unbelievable. These people come here and think they can disrespect cops." This demonstrated racial bias and consciousness that his actions were problematic. Another message stated, "My lawyer says the video might be a problem. I didn't think her doorbell was recording." The Oakmont Police Department's initial response accepted Hutchins's incident report as accurate and processed Iris's arrest through normal channels. On March 16th, Iris was arraigned on charges of resisting an officer and obstruction of justice. Sienna posted bail and secured Iris's release after 14 hours in custody. After reviewing the doorbell footage, Sienna connected Iris with civil rights attorney Langston Pierce, who immediately recognized clear Fourth Amendment violations. Pierce filed a formal complaint with the police department on March 17th, including still images from the footage showing Hutchins breaking the door chain. The department acknowledged receipt, but took no immediate action. Hutchins remained on active duty. On March 18th evening, after legal consultation, Iris made the doorbell footage public via social media. By the following morning, the video had hundreds of thousands of views. By evening, it had been shared by national civil rights organizations and news outlets. The Oakmont Police Department began receiving intense media scrutiny. Chief Reeves held a press conference on March 19th, stating the department took allegations seriously, but cautioning against judging based on a video clip lacking full context. He referenced a suspicious activity report that did not exist and claimed the officer followed protocols. This statement contained multiple false assertions that were later used as evidence of institutional bad faith. Under public pressure, Reeves placed Hutchins on paid administrative leave on March 20th. The police union issued a statement supporting Hutchins and asking people to wait for all facts. On March 21st, the district attorney dropped all charges against Iris, acknowledging she committed no crime. The department assigned an internal investigation to Captain Moss, the same supervisor who had approved clearing Hutchins of all 6 prior complaints. This created immediate credibility problems. Civil rights advocates demanded external investigation. The city council voted to request the county district attorney conduct a criminal investigation independent of the police department's internal review. On March 27th, the FBI Civil Rights Division opened an investigation into whether Hutchins violated Iris's civil rights under color of law. On March 29th, the Department of Justice initiated a pattern or practice investigation into the department's complaint handling, use of force, and disciplinary procedures. A federal grand jury indicted Officer Hutchins in May 2023 on 7 counts: deprivation of rights under color of law for illegal entry, false arrest, and excessive force, obstruction of justice for falsifying reports, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and civil rights violations of the 4th and 14th Amendments. The trial lasted 3 weeks in January 2024. Federal prosecutors presented the doorbell footage, forensic analysis proving Hutchins broke the chain, medical evidence of injuries, dispatch records proving no call existed, Hutchins's false written report, expert testimony about 4th Amendment requirements, pattern evidence from prior complaints, and departmental emails showing institutional knowledge. After 7 hours of deliberation, the jury returned guilty verdicts on all 7 counts. At sentencing in April 2024, Judge Margaret O'Connor imposed a sentence of 912 months, 76 years, in federal prison. She stated that Hutchins had violated the most fundamental constitutional protections, that evidence showed pattern behavior enabled by institutional indifference, and that the sentence reflected the severity of violating rights under color of authority. The sentence sent a message that such conduct would not be tolerated. Appeals were denied, and the Supreme Court declined to hear the case. Iris filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against Hutchins, Sergeant Castellano, Chief Reeves, and the city of Oakmont. In March 2024, the city settled for $2.8 million with terms including formal written apology, agreement to implement DOJ-mandated reforms, and no confidentiality clause. Chief Reeves resigned in June 2023 under pressure, receiving severance and retaining his pension. Sergeant Castellano was reassigned to administrative duties and retired in October 2023 with full pension. Captain Moss was demoted and retired in 2024. None faced criminal charges, though their failures were extensively documented. The Department of Justice released a 127-page report in September 2023, finding the department systemically deficient in complaint investigations, use of force review, and accountability. The city accepted a consent decree requiring comprehensive reforms under federal oversight for minimum 5 years. Activated at 11:47 p.m., captured 11 minutes that changed one life, ended one career, and exposed institutional failures. Without that recording, this case would have followed a familiar pattern: officers' word against civilians' word, institutional bias favoring the officer, charges against the victim, no accountability. The case reveals a gap between constitutional rights as written and as experienced. It demonstrates how power operates when institutions prioritize protection over truth. It shows technology can force accountability when institutional mechanisms fail. Hutchins received unprecedented punishment, but he operated for years in a culture that enabled his misconduct through deliberate indifference to clear warning signs. The broader question remains: how many violations must occur before institutions act without being forced? The Iris Valdez case suggests institutions often will not act until evidence becomes so overwhelming that denial is impossible. Justice was achieved in one case, while systemic problems requiring ongoing transformation persist across countless departments nationwide. The story ends where it began, with a command issued inside a private space and a system that corrected itself only after the facts were no longer disputable. Please subscribe to the channel and enable notifications so you don't miss future stories, updates, and in-depth discussions. Thank you for being part of this platform dedicated to examining the facts and pursuing accountability. Until next time, stay informed and stay safe.